Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something really, really crucial for any society that cares about fairness.
Hmm.
It's about how we deal with children who uh, find themselves in conflict with the law.
Right, because the strength of a justice system, especially for kids, isn't just the laws on paper.
No, it's hugely about the people running it, the
Mm.
people making the decision.
Exactly. And in India, a key part of this is the Juvenile Justice Board, or the JJB.
That's our focus today. We're doing a deep dive into the rules, the really strict rules about who can actually be on this board.
And just as importantly, how they can be removed if needed. It's all about ensuring integrity.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to unpack all of that.
Mm.
The qualifications you need, what things automatically disqualify you, and the processes for termination.
All to make sure that JJB works effectively, fairly, and always, always puts the child first.
And we should mention, this isn't just guesswork. These rules are laid out very clearly in the main law here.
That's right. The Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act, 2015, the JJ Act, 2015 as it's often called, that's our primary source.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. For anyone listening who might not be familiar, what exactly is the JJB's job? What's its main function?
Well, fundamentally, the JJB is the specific body set up in India to handle cases involving children alleged to be in conflict with the law.
So, like a specialized court just for minors.
Pretty much, yeah. It ensures they're dealt with separately from the adult system in a more sensitive and appropriate way.
And who sits on this board? Is it just judges?
No, and that's key. Each district's JJB has a principal magistrate, who is a judicial officer, but they're joined by 2 social worker members. And the law specifically says one of those social workers must be a woman.
Oh, interesting. That requirement for a woman member seems very intentional.
It is. It really points towards trying to get a balance of perspectives, legal expertise, and social welfare understanding, plus, gender diversity.
Okay, let's dig into the qualifications then. Who are these people? Starting with the principal magistrate, what's required there?
Right, so the principal magistrate has to be either a metropolitan magistrate or a judicial magistrate of first class.
So these are judges with a certain level of experience already.
Exactly. They have experience with court procedures, evidence, the whole legal framework. But here's a crucial detail.
What's that?
They specifically should not be the chief metropolitan magistrate or the chief judicial magistrate.
Really? Why not the chief? You'd think seniority might be good.
Well, the thinking seems to be that those chief positions often carry really heavy administrative loads.
Okay.
And the Act wants the JJB's judicial head to be focused, really dedicated to the juvenile cases, not bogged down with other stuff.
That makes a lot of sense for these kinds of sensitive cases. Is there an experience requirement too?
Yes, they need at least 3 years experience in their role as a metropolitan or judicial magistrate of first class, so not fresh out of the gate.
Got it. Experience and focus. What about the other members, the social workers? What are the criteria for them?
For the social worker members, the rules are also quite specific. First, age-wise, they need to be over 35
Okay.
and generally not older than 65 when they're appointed.
And their background, what kind of experience or education?
Here, there's a choice, an either situation. They need either at least 7 years of hands-on experience,
Doing what specifically?
actively working with children in fields like education, health, or general welfare activities, real practical experience.
What's the other option?
Or they can be a practicing professional holding a degree in certain relevant fields.
Like what?
Child psychology, psychiatry, sociology, or even law, but the degree needs to be from a recognized Indian university.
Wow, okay. So it's either deep practical experience or specialized academic knowledge.
Exactly. It acknowledges that helping children in the justice system needs both, street smarts and book smarts, so to speak, understanding child development, welfare. It's not just legal points.
It paints a picture of a very well-rounded board. But qualifications are only half the story. Who is absolutely not allowed to be on the board? What are the disqualifications?
Right, and this is where the Act really tries to safeguard the integrity of the JJB. These rules mainly apply to the social worker members and generally other non-judicial members.
So what's a definite no-go?
Well, first off, any past record of violating human rights or child rights, that's an immediate disqualification, full stop.
Makes sense. What else?
If they've been convicted of an offense involving moral turpitude.
Okay, what does moral turpitude mean in this context, roughly?
It generally refers to acts considered, inherently base, vile, or depraved, dishonest, essentially. If they have such a conviction and it hasn't been overturned or fully pardoned, they're ineligible.
So, serious ethical breaches in the past, are there other things maybe related to their professional life?
Absolutely. If they've ever been removed or dismissed from government service, central, state, or even a government-controlled company that bars them. Also, and this is critical, if they've ever indulged in child abuse, used child labor, or committed any other human rights violation or an immoral act.
That seems rightly strict.
It has to be. And there are practical considerations, too. If they have a full-time job that's so demanding it wouldn't let them give proper time and attention to the board's work, that's a disqualifier.
So commitment is key.
Huge. And conflicts of interest are a big one. They can't be associated with any child care institution, directly or indirectly, while they're a member.
To keep things impartial.
Exactly. Also, holding any office in a political party during their term is out. And finally, they can't be insolvent.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list. It really drives home the need for ethical standing and undivided attention.
It does. The stakes are just incredibly high when you're dealing with children's futures. There's very little room for error or compromise.
Okay, so let's shift gears slightly. Once someone is on the board, are they there for good, or is there accountability? Can their appointment be ended early?
Yes, definitely. There's an accountability mechanism built in. Specifically for the social worker members, their appointment can be terminated before their term ends.
By whom?
By the state government. But importantly, it has to be after a proper inquiry.
And the principal magistrate.
They're a judicial officer, so they generally fall under the rules governing judicial service, which is a separate track.
Right. So for the social workers, what's the typical term length?
It's usually 3 years from the date they're appointed.
Can they be reappointed?
Yes, they are eligible for reappointment for one more term. So a maximum of 2 terms in total.
Okay.
But interestingly, the law says those 2 terms cannot be continuous.
Oh, why is that, do you think?
It seems designed to ensure fresh perspectives come onto the board regularly, prevents anyone becoming too entrenched, perhaps.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what sort of things could actually lead to a social worker member being terminated early? What are the grounds?
There are specific grounds listed. A major one is if they're found guilty of misusing the power they have under the JJ Act.
That sounds serious.
It is. Abuse of power is taken very seriously. Another ground is absenteeism.
How much absenteeism?
If they fail to attend the board meetings consecutively for 3 months without a valid reason, or if they fail to attend at least 3/4, so 75% of the sittings held in a year.
So they really expect active participation.
Absolutely. It's not a passive role. And finally, if they become ineligible during their term under any of those disqualification criteria we talked about earlier.
Like if they suddenly take a political office or get involved with the CCI?
Exactly. If something changes that makes them disqualified, their appointment can be terminated.
Got it. And what does the actual process of termination involve? You mentioned an inquiry.
Yes, the state government can't just arbitrarily dismiss someone. They must conduct an inquiry first.
And does the member get to defend themselves?
Yes, that's crucial. The principles of natural justice apply. The member has to be given a fair opportunity to be heard, to present their side of the story.
So due process is protected.
It is. There's also a provision that if a criminal case gets registered against a member, the state government has the power to suspend them immediately while the inquiry is ongoing.
Okay, to protect the board's functioning in the meantime.
Precisely. It ensures the board's integrity isn't potentially compromised while a serious investigation is underway.
Looking at all this, the detailed qualifications, the strict disqualifications, the termination process, it's clearly a very deliberate structure. Stepping back, what's the real impact of all these rules? Why does it matter so much?
Well, the impact is profound, really. These aren't just hoops to jump through. The qualifications ensure you have the right mix of skills on the board.
The legal knowledge from the magistrate.
Right, and the deep understanding of child psychology, social work, child welfare from the social workers. That practical experience requirement is key, too. It means they've likely dealt with complex situations involving children before.
And the disqualifications. How do they contribute?
They act as a vital shield, you know. They actively prevent people with problematic histories, human rights abuses, ethical lapses, conflicts of interest from getting into these incredibly sensitive positions. It's proactive protection for the children the board serves.
So it builds trust in the system.
Ideally, yes. And the termination provisions reinforce that. They provide the teeth for accountability, meaning there's a way to remove members who aren't performing, who are misusing power, who are consistently absent, or who become ineligible. This oversight is absolutely essential for the JJB's credibility.
It sounds like a balancing act.
It is. You need the board members to feel independent enough to make fair, sometimes tough decisions without undue pressure.
But not unaccountable.
Exactly. The termination rules provide that check, ensuring independence isn't misused. And the inquiry process protects the members from arbitrary removal, safeguarding their independence to make fair decisions.
You know, hearing all this, it makes me think about that recent case that was all over the news, the Poon-Porsche accident case. These provisions suddenly felt very real then, didn't they?
Absolutely. That case brought these termination rules, particularly around misuse of power, right into the public eye in a major way.
Because action was taken against some board members, right?
That's what was reported, yes. 2 JJB members involved in the initial handling of that case reportedly faced termination proceedings based on allegations of procedural lapses or misuse of authority.
So it's a real-world example of the system having these mechanisms.
And being willing to use them, apparently, when serious questions arise about conduct or adherence to the Act's principles. It highlights why having these clear provisions for accountability matters so much. It's not just theoretical.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, what's the key takeaway from this deep dive into how India's juvenile justice boards are staffed and overseen?
I think the main thing is that the JJ Act of 2015 has put a really deliberate, quite meticulous framework in place.
Meticulous how?
Both in defining who is qualified, ensuring the right expertise and integrity, and in setting out clear processes and grounds for removing members, if necessary. It creates a system aimed at being both effective and accountable.
A system designed ultimately to protect children who come into contact with the law.
That's the goal. A robust framework for the JJB's functioning.
It really does show a serious effort to safeguard vulnerable young people within the justice system. So here's something to think about as we close. We've seen how much power and responsibility the Juvenile Justice Board holds. How do these detailed, transparent processes for deciding who serves and how they can be removed truly uphold the fundamental values of justice, especially for the children relying on that board for a fair chance?